Will the step up in basis at death die? Hey everyone, this is Adam Bergman, founder of IRA Financial and tax attorney. Well, recently the $3.5 trillion budget was passed on August 11, 2021. And as part of that, $1 trillion infrastructure plan was also proposed. So in order to pay for this infrastructure bill, we're going to need to be able to pass a budget that includes revenue raisers. So we're going to need ways to raise revenue by way of taxing, corporate tax increases, potential capital gains tax increases, and a few other tax increases, along with a potential end to the step up in basis at death. Now, the step up in basis as death has been around for over 100 years, and it's enshrined in section 1014 of the Internal Revenue Code. So what is a step up in basis? Step up in basis means that if you buy an asset, let's say for $100, and you die, and now that asset's worth $500, your heirs get the step up in basis. So it goes from 100 to 500, and now they get that asset at a $500 basis, right? So that means that's a huge value because that built-in gains tax of $400 evaporates. It goes away. So now your heirs get the asset at a stepped up basis. Again, this has been around for over 100 years. This is a major tax planning tool that many taxpayers use in order to pass assets to their heirs. Now, as part of this budget, where Congress and Senate are going to be involved in committees in order to try to raise at least $1 trillion of money to pay for the infrastructure bill, they're going to need to come up with ways to pay for that infrastructure bill. And the step up in basis is one provision, along with the increase in individual income tax rates back to 39.6, is a way that they expect to generate hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 10 years. So let's talk about what this proposal means. Now, according to this Biden proposal, and again, this is something that President Biden talked about when he was running for presidency. And this is also something that Senator Warren talked about, and it goes along the lines of a asset appreciation tax, meaning each year what Senator Warren attempted to do is tax your wealth each year on an annual basis. So what this step up at basis tax is going to, well, I don't want to say tax, I want to say the elimination of the step up in basis. What's going to happen is you're going to get a $2 million exemption if you're married, $1 million if you're single. Okay, and there's also going to be some other exemptions, like if you pass your assets to your spouse, there will not be any tax on a step up in basis, also to charities, also potentially to small business stock. So there could be some additional exemptions along with that $2 million window. And there'll also be a $250,000 exemption for a home primary residence. Okay, so let's go through a couple examples to show that how the elimination of the step up basis, along with an estate tax, because it's really creating a dual tax at death. Right now, in 2021, it's $11.7 million exemption per person. If you're married, obviously you get the 3.4, right? So what happens? If you pass away and you have less than the 11.7 or 11.7 times 2, if you're married, you're not going to pay any estate tax. Great. Okay. That threshold, that $11.7 million window is expected to be reduced, potentially even to $3 or $5 million. So what that means is if it is reduced to $5 million, okay, and you have an estate worth more than $5 million, you could potentially pay estate tax, which can travel as high as 40 or 50% along with state tax, depending on where you live. And now, if this elimination of the step-up basis passes, you could potentially also owe up to 40% tax, because it would be a capital gains tax, on assets that have a value of over 1 million or 2 million if you are married, file jointly. So let's give a couple examples. Let's say you have a business that you paid $100,000 for basis. That's what you paid to start in the business. And now it's $5 million, right? It's been around for 25 years. So you start at 100K, Now it's $5 million. Okay. And you also have some other assets. So now let's say your estate's worth $10 million because you have stocks and primary residence, some other stuff, and your value is now $10 million. Now let's just assume the qualifying small business stock exemption doesn't apply. What happens? So today, if you die today and that happens, if you're under 11.7 million, you're not paying any estate tax, and your heirs are going to get a step up in basis in your company stock of the 5 million. So then once they sell the asset for, let's say, 7 million, they'll only pay $2 million of tax instead of paying the 7 million minus the 100,000 basis. But let's say this elimination of the step up basis occurs. What's going to happen? So that means if, let's say you get a $2 million exemption because you're married, right? So now you have an asset worth 3 million. You have a basis of 100,000. So you're going to owe 40% tax on 5 million minus the 2.1 million. Okay, so about 2.9 million tax. You're going to owe 40% on $2.9 million, real money. Then, depending on where the state tax threshold is, let's say it's at 5 million, and now you have an estate worth 10 million, you're going to owe also estate tax on $5 million, potentially 40% on that. So you can see how this could really impact the way people plan for estate planning and also how they plan for leaving assets to their loved ones. So what I'm trying to say is this is a doozy. Again, the step up in basis has been around over 100 years. If they eliminate that, yeah, there'll be some exemptions like charity, passing assets to spouse, potentially qualifying small business stock, also 250,000 exemption for primary residence. So it could reduce the impact of that tax, but it still could be significant. Will there be tax planning? Of course, right? Right away, I spoke to a couple of trust and estate attorneys. They're talking to ways to kind of circumvent this. Number one will be life insurance, which is exempted from estate tax. Another, potentially, make sure your company is a qualifying small business stock to take advantage of that exemption. And then the other are irrevocable trusts, slats, things like that, where you can leave your business potentially to a spouse in an irrevocable trust to remove it from the step up in basis elimination tax and also from the estate tax. So overall, I'm going to follow this particularly closely because it impacts a lot of taxpayers, especially estate planning, especially people with small businesses, farms. What the Biden administration, or at least what they're hinting, is that if you do have a small business or a farm and you pass, they will delay the tax until your family sells it. So it doesn't impact you or your family on the date of death from a tax standpoint. So again, all this stuff will get worked out, but it is a significant, I think, a super significant event, eliminating the step up in basis. It will change the way tax planning occurs. You may see a reduction in value of 1031 exchanges because a lot of real estate investors, their whole idea is deferring tax until they die and then passing the assets to their heirs at fair market value. So then they can sell the real estate and then reduce their tax. You'll see, I think, an increase in life insurance planning and potentially Roth IRAs as well, because they will, although they are subject to estate tax, you're not going to have to deal with a step up in basis tax potentially at death as well. So all this is kind of fluid. It's up to the committees. Obviously, Congress has to approve the budget. The committees will go to work. They'll figure out ways to raise revenue along with, again, increased capital gains tax, increased corporate tax, increased individual tax, Roth cap. These are all the things they're working on. They promise they're not going to raise taxes for earners less than $400,000. We shall see. But again, this is something that we will see more of, towards the end of 2021, when the committees have to get to work and come up with ways to generate revenues to pay for the infrastructure bill and to have a budget. So I will keep you in tune. That's today's episode, and thanks for watching.